Welcome to Win Behind the Practice. I'm Sophie Campisi. I'm a holistic business builder and startup expert. Every week, I sit down with practitioners, coaches, and healers to explore what's really happening behind the scenes of building a mission-driven business. Over the years, I've noticed something surprising. Many incredibly talented practitioners and coaches aren't struggling because they lack passion, skill, or dedication. They're struggling because they're investing enormous amounts of time, money, and energy into building their businesses, yet the results often don't match the effort. I've come to realize that disconnect isn't random. Most practitioners are incredibly skilled at the work they do with their clients, but very few of us were ever taught or trained in how to build and validate a business model. So we piece things together, follow advice, invest in courses, work incredibly hard, and often find ourselves wondering why things still aren't clicking. This podcast exists to slow those conversations down and ask better questions before rushing to answers. Together, we explore the dreams, the uncertainty, the pivots, the breakthroughs, and the blind spots that shape the journey of building a practice. My hope is that these conversations help you recognize what's really happening in your own business so you can stop guessing, start seeing things more clearly, and build a business that's as impactful as the work you do. Today's guest is Janaki Mayhill. Janaki is a soul architect, sound weaver, and the founder of the Prosperous Portal. She works with visionary, heart-led leaders to uncover the patterns and hidden beliefs keeping them out of alignment, helping them bring their inner world into greater coherence so the life and work they're building reflects their deepest truth, purpose, and prosperity. Janaki, it is so great to have you here. Thank you so much for showing up and having this conversation with me today.
Thank you. I appreciate you. I love being here.
Before we look behind the scenes today, can you share with us a little bit more about the work that you do?
Yes. So the heart of my work is I support people to remember who they are underneath all the conditions, the programs, the shame that people carry, the right, wrong, good, bad, not enough, too much, and broken, where we keep ourselves small, and all these survival strategies to live our aligned, prosperous life. Because when we can shed who we aren't, we remember who we are. So bringing people back home to who they are and at the core beyond beliefs and stories that people hold on to.
What's the main structure of your business model? Is it one-on-one work? I know that you do the Prosperous Portal. I think that's a group thing.
It is. It is. As of now, it's kind of been in that shifting stage. So the Prosperous Portal has actually been that North Star. It's been supporting with the structure of everything and giving a more of a pathway. Before I would do like group things or work one-on-one, I still do work with one-on-one clients, and I still do have I have retreats and different things of that nature. And then I have my I Am Journeys, which is a once a month gathering, and it's a symphony of sound that takes one on because I believe one of the fastest ways to reprogram one's mind is sound repetition and play. So connecting to the subconscious patterns.
Have you always been doing this exact type of work? Has it evolved, shifted, pivoted?
Oh yeah, yeah. It is definitely evolved, as we all do. And with that, the evolving, something I've recently discovered is, especially being a bridge that connects worlds, what no longer serves you will dissolve so you can evolve. And so there is a lot of shedding. And I will say 2025 was my biggest shedding year. And because of that, there was so many things that I rooted in. And so it, again, discovering, shedding that not self to remember who we truly are.
Can you talk a little bit more about that shedding? If you want to, of course, you don't have to, but how it related and also how it related to business and your evolution with your business and your work.
Oh, yes. I'm more than happy. So it actually first started, the first initiation of the shedding was initiation with grief. My son's father died at late January in a car accident. So he was my first love. And it opened up a vault of memories, both painful and joyful. And so through that, expanded my heart into more love and compassion. And so that was one of the first innings. And that's where I discovered that, of course, like I received in a breath session that energy never dies. Obviously, we know this, and this perception of death. So I started being curious with it. And I saw it more of like a tree shedding. And so I remember being in the backyard and I was thanking, I said, thank you. This is right after his celebration of life. I said, thank you for allowing me to see through the lens of love and the eyes of God. This was after I had a huge crying waterfall, and then like hundreds of leaves fell. And in that moment, I heard the holding on is what creates the suffering, and the let go is where the liberation lives. And so it prepared me for what was actually coming in, what I didn't realize, which was going to be one of the deepest valleys I traveled with my family when my husband almost died several months after. Like, it was like more in like August that happened. And that's where I discovered in the valleys is where we receive our gold, and in the mountaintops is where we see the gold we have received. So it's the rhythm of life. So it allowed me to, like, the whole initiation for the Prosperous Portal, honestly, was to expand my capacity of receiving. Because I heard a lady on stage at Mint for Magic, she says, if you think you have a money problem, you actually have a receiving problem. And that's where I heard God's voice within me say, you're going to create an offering that restores the relationship with mommy and money. And so the Prosperous Portal is designed to expand our capacity of receiving. And the way we do that is when we feel held and we feel supported, then we can expand the capacity of holding what we actually choose. So it's the stop abandoning ourselves. So it took me being alone. My children were living with their aunt, and my husband wasn't here, and I was all alone. And that was the first time ever, because I had my son at a young age. So I never lived alone until that moment. So I got to shed who is Janaki when she's not a mom, when she's not a wife, who is Janaki at the core. And so that's actually the message I received. I did my women's retreat and went by myself because that's the message I heard. You've been making it about everyone else. It's time to put you first. And so when I got back, I was actually ready to leave my husband at that moment because we were in this crossroads, and I received some body work. And then in that session, I heard, focus on your body and your business will thrive. Invest in your body and your business will thrive. And realizing how they were never separate, and our body is connected. Our business is our beingness. And that's why entrepreneurship can seem pretty hard, because a lot of people don't focus on the inner work. They want to go in the outer.
When you look ahead to the next 6 to 12 months, what would you really love to see happen in your business?
Honestly, more. I already am receiving a lot of ease and flow. I'm already am receiving support, and more. The consistent support, having a sovereign team to really build the systems, because I see the Prosperous Portal being a global platform that aligns ourselves. It focuses on the inner coherence of our internal world, that shifts identities and creates the impact, which obviously generates income. And so I see this being a global platform. And so that's what I imagine, is having that team where it flows organically. Because right now it's still in that a little bit of that messy stage, building the plane while flying it, and then having something really solid with that. And it is, I've already witnessed, like, someone manifested $20,000, and it's like, wow, this is amazing to witness. And one of the greatest gifts that I'm receiving from the Prosperous Portal is witnessing how my husband is showing up for himself and doing it for himself, and how our relationship has shifted dramatically.
Is the main goal of, let's see, let me pull out a thread of that, getting, more support and more teams and like building more solid systems, is the main goal of that to be able to grow, flow, find a lot more ease and flow with clients and people who are coming into the offering like that?
Yes, yes, like having those systems and the structures where it's super solid, where what I've witnessed, like when we live in our prosperous energy, we're staying in our lane, we're staying in our zone of genius, and we're letting go of that program of trying to do it all. Because, yeah.
What have you already been focusing on or trying to make that a reality, to get to that point that you know is possible for this?
I have called in support. I have already, like, we're building those systems. As I said, building that plane while flying it. And yeah, I'd say definitely what I truly believe is the most important is that inner work. So, like, clearing those programs where I felt, and I kind of tread lightly with the whole, like we were talking about, enough or deserve, because if you look at it really, it's a program, that part of like, oh, I'm not enough or I'm worthy. And it's like, does a bird require to be worthy to fly? Does a fish? It's like we're trying to fit in boxes that we don't belong in. So it's like being our innate nature. And one of my innate nature is the pureness and innocence of a child. And that's what I keep hearing is, like, one time I asked my business, what's my next action step? And I hear, go spin in your backyard. I'm like, that makes no sense. And then, of course, it did, because it changed my whole inner being and everything became magnetized into my field versus me trying to chase or get it.
Tell me more about that if you want.
Yes, yes. Well, like one of, like I was sharing with you earlier, like I, one of my things is alchemizing shame or transmuting shame, because that's what I do is I have walked the path of mastery within my own life of turning wounds into wisdoms. And so when we can dive into those shadow aspects of ourself, they actually turn into power. They turn into pleasure. And so that's why I say, like, the innate nature is the imperfections. And that's what my whole branding has been about recently is let's embrace those imperfections. So many of us try to strive for perfection, and even before I launched this, like a couple years prior, I was like, why am I not doing this? Well, what if you were to do it messy? What if you were to do it imperfect? And in that moment, I heard, I am perfect. And I go, that's what. So I partner with Christ conscious energy. I was like, that's what that means, is embracing our whole self, because we're not one or the other. We are both. And my computer agrees as I say that. And so that's what I actively am within all of my offerings, is being that bridge for both. And
You look at everything that you've done and everything that you've tried so far in business building, not necessarily for this current offer, but in the past time of entrepreneurship, solopreneurship, trying to bring your work into the world. Does it feel like the results have matched the effort that you've put in?
um, so as of now, they're starting to, like, all those fruits are coming into fruition. Like, as soon as I launched the Prosperous Portal, things have, like, living in the frequency. Now, previously, I had to let go a lot of programs, especially the doing it all, because I would people come in and I would sabotage the support, because I would say I wanted it all, but my internal world wasn't matching my external world. And so it's like someone winning the lottery. They're like, yeah, I got all this. And then all of a sudden their money goes quickly because they don't have the capacity to actually hold what they're choosing. So I will say now I'm seeing it, and there's more. And before, there was years of struggle. There was, like, a lot of efforting, and I say farting, like it just gets in the stinking thinking of the doo-doo, because I was so focused on the how of things versus the energy of what's in front of me right now. And so when I shifted that and, like, who is this version of Janaki, and we're like working with the identity, so many things shifted.
In these kind of like former chapters, not to like go back and excavate, but what was that like for you? Because that's certainly a big pattern, that comes up over and over again. You're my 91st episode. That's just the ones that I've recorded the podcast for. I talk to so many people in our pocket of the world. one of the roles I'm playing with the podcast and just like putting a spotlight on the behind the scenes for us is to help us connect the patterns and to figure it out all together. Because I truly believe, first and foremost, not only that the more these types of businesses that are successful and thriving, the better the world will be. Like it's a win-win. So like obviously that's my why. That's why I do what I do, is because the more people that I work with, that I connect with, that are thriving, truly thriving and successful, the better off we will all be. The better off all of our communities will be, our children, our relationships, our families, our parents, like everything. So of course, that's first and foremost. But to put language to some of this stuff, you said this, I don't remember if this was before we were recording or after, but we all are committed to doing, air quotes, the work. We know that step one to solving any problem or working through anything is acknowledging it. We can't change anything until we first put language to it, until we first acknowledge what's there. We know this, even though we can be really hard on ourselves. We don't do it on purpose, right? When we have a blind spot, when things aren't working, it's not because we're like maliciously like, I just want to sabotage this. It's like we're doing the best we can based on like what we have and what we're given and like what patterns we're running, and we're doing our best to shift that. And so, that's part of my job and my role, even with this podcast, is to help put language to patterns, help put language to stuff that we are all up against, and maybe we can't see it or maybe we haven't been able to see it. One of the things, of course, is that that's part of how this question has naturally evolved to be something that's really important to this bigger conversation. So many people are at a point, or have been at some point, feeling like they have poured into, and it's not matching. They've poured into effort, even working on themselves, whatever type of effort they've poured into, and it's not matching the results. And it causes this crazy making thing, because it's like, it's more than just like, oh, this is frustrating. It's like more like WTF, like what is going on?
Um, I love how you were saying that, because immediately what I was hearing is like, I was telling a client the other day is, say you're looking through this perspective, and the, well, quote unquote problem is like this tiny dot, but it's so close and all we can see is that. And so what is important, like you're saying, awareness is the key that shifts our reality. And so that actually was right before my former did die. That was my journey that I was consciously aware of diving into the void of what I avoided. So I actually went very short period, because I knew I was meant to like go down a path of a life insurance, only for the fact of the avoidance of the money system and death. And then as soon as my former died, that dissolved completely. And so many people, at least this is what I'm witnessing, they're trying to get somewhere. So it's like chasing that carrot. Pause. Like, part of my strategy is rest and play. It doesn't make sense for a business. And it's true. When we're in the state of gratitude, when we're in the state of joy, when we're in the state of awe or wonder, it is greater than any strategy, because we're letting the miracles that we already are of life to come in. And that's the receptive mode. That's why it's so important to do the inner work, in my perspective, especially as an entrepreneur, because you're going to be faced with all those aspects of yourself that you haven't loved yet. And so until you can bring that into your awareness. So it's when we shift our perspective, all of a sudden that little bitty problem's no longer a problem. We see the miracles. So shifting the perspective shifts the perception. And so that's why I say our business is the direct reflection of our beingness.
Is there anywhere in your business right now that you still feel like you're mostly guessing, where it feels like, I'm trying and I'm going to make decisions, but I'm not actually sure if this is the thing that's going to move the needle?
Oh, yes, there's still, and like I'm being invited, meaning energetically, the field, the opportunities are rising to go into those things that have felt edgy. And so it's trusting that sacred yes, like our head may not make sense of it. and it's trusting our heart, letting our heart lead the way. So that's I do business not like most people, and what I find is it, like I said, the inner world. So I will say, as far as other areas, structure, and also kind of acknowledging that not all structure looks the same. Like, so many of us want to fit into the box of everyone else. What I have structure of water. Actually, water told me I am structured. I'm like, oh yeah, of course. So one of my gifts is I can pivot instead of being like, oh no, my world's shattering. Let's go a different direction. And so, although there is that shadow and the light of each, it's almost like, okay, now I got to have like the consistency with that structure, the order, and like those systems that bring things, because I had a lot of perceived resistance with structure before. And what I'm now finding is I'm leaning into that more masculine energy of structure, because it actually it's like giving a direction for the magic to flow versus just going everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that metaphor that you gave of water, it is a great example of how you can work with structure to be very effective and actually add more flow, because water without banks just floods all around. But you
Mhm.
add banks to it and you flow. You can flow that water and you can get from point A to point B and do something with it, and understanding how to use structure effectively while also keeping an eye on values and goals, and these things really shows you that it's not limiting, that it can actually create more flow, and it can actually bring more calmness into a business. It can calm our nervous systems too.
It really can. And that's that's what at least one of the gifts the Prosperous Portal has given me, because it has become a structure. It's the spinal alignment of the undoing of all those programs. And so we're actually working with the different chakras, and each chakra holds an energy and programs. And when we can undo it, there's prosperous, like right now we're in pure expression and letting ourselves express ourselves. So many people are afraid of expressing their needs, their desires.
Last question I'm going to ask today. If you could wave a magic wand and have one piece of building your business suddenly become crystal clear, what would that be? What would make the biggest difference for you?
Having a clear system, like it is in that process of it, having it already built, that systems, and having that clear structure where I simply show up and boom, like I'm not focused on the marketing. I'm not focused on, because I still am doing a lot. Now I've let go of a lot of that program, and there still is that part where I would love to be in a place where I am the visionary and the founder of my business, and to be in that place of having that support system where things that may not be my zone of genius are others. And so it's a thriving ecosystem.
Janaki, thank you so much for joining me today to have this conversation. And for those of you who are listening, if any part of this resonated, you're in the right place, please reach out. I want to hear from you. And if you want to reach Janaki directly, the links to her website, Facebook, Instagram, Linktree, and to the Prosperous Portal are in the show notes. Thank you again, Janaki, and to everyone else, thank you for listening. And we'll see you for the next episode of Ren Behind the Practice.